Please, some of you could say something because we are taking the sound, please.
Hello and good morning. As it is 10 past 9, I will start with this session. I'm Alexandra de Lucatiblia, speaking you from the University of Rijeka, Croatia. Together with me, the program committee members of this workshops were Professor Socrates Basbas from Aristotle University of Thessaloniki, Greece, Professor Tiziana Campisi from the University of Enna, Core, Italy, and Professor Nikiforos Stamatiadis from Aristotle University of Thessaloniki, Greece. As you know, this workshop was on the new mobility proposals, and the motivation for the workshops was the fact that over 70% of US citizens live in cities, and this produces around 23% of all greenhouse gas emissions from transport. In order to ensure the adoption of strategies related to sustainable and intelligent mobility, interurban and urban mobility must become more sustainable, intelligent, and healthy. To support this, it is necessary to provide for an acceleration of digitalization and innovation that by incorporating urban mobility into the work on the supply and processing of commercially sensitive data for multimodal digital mobility services, such as mobility as a service, and on a common European space for mobility data to facilitate access and sharing of mobility data. All this will allow for a greater spread of climate neutral and smart cities in the coming years. In this session, we have four potential presentations. We have four papers. Uh, so please, I don't see that our colleague Ankit Patel is here. He was supposed to be first. Then for the second paper, we don't have presenter and we will not have the presentation. So is maybe the colleague Giuseppe Capelli here?
Yes, for me.
Uh, can you maybe be the first one to present?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Let's
So,
share my screen.
okay, you share your screen while I present and say a few words about your paper. So the first paper was that we will hear now was written by Maurizio D'Apuzzo, Giuseppe Capelli, Azzurra Evangelisti, and Daniela Santilli. The title of the presentation is Design Methods for Pedestrian Areas by a Simplified Approach to Predict the Future Traffic Scenarios. As I said, to present will be Giuseppe Capelli from the University of Cassino in southern Lazio. So please, Giuseppe.
Okay. Can you see the presentation? Sorry, can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. I'm Giuseppe Cappelli from University of Cassino in Southern Lazio, and the title of this presentation is A Design Method for Pedestrian Areas, a simplified approach to predict the future traffic scenario. In this presentation, we'll talk about sustainable mobility and pedestrian area, and I will show you some example of pedestrian areas in Europe and in Italy. Then I'll show how this method that we have create works, and and finally the result of this type of analysis. Conclusion, we propose also future development to this type of analysis. In 2015, the government of 193 UN member countries approved the Agenda 30 for Sustainable Development, and the theme of sustainable mobility falls under Objective 3, 9, and 11. In 2020, the Next Generation EU was applied in Europe, and it is essential also to highlight the National Recovery Resilience Plan that focus on some aspect of sustainable mobility and also create new funds to this problem. One of the many ways to apply sustainable mobility is to create pedestrian areas. Pedestrian areas completely prohibit the use of the car, and they are usually built in strategic areas such as city center or also historic center. This measure lead to a reduction of noise and environmental pollution, but the main aspect that the pedestrian area increase the safety condition for all road users, and especially for vulnerable users. There are different examples of pedestrian areas in Europe. The first in chronological order is the case of Zermatt in Switzerland. In 1961, the municipality closed itself to traffic, and that is the first example of pedestrian area in Europe. A second example is the case of Pontevedra in Spain. In 2000, the Pontevedra's policies incentivize strategies for sustainable mobility and also for pedestrians. This set of measures lead to reduction of traffic and speed, and the city transformed itself into a touristic city. Another case is Oslo in Norway that closed its historic center in 2019, and in the same year gets the title of European Green Capital. There are also some examples in Italy. The first is the school street in Bolzano, measure that reduced by half the number of the accident. Then the pedestrian area of Pinedo realized to contrast an urban degradation in some peripheral areas of the city. A project in Rome where parking will be removed in Piazza Sempione Square, and another project is the Bixio Street, where parking and transit in front of this school will be banned. Going to the matter and going to the case study, the area and the study is the municipality of Cassino. Cassino is a medium-sized city in the center of Italy, and the urban traffic plan uh, is provide a pedestrian area and a zone 30 in the center of the city. Uh, in this center, there are also several activities such as economic and commercial activities. And in the old city, there are different university school and different school of different grade. Um, as we can see in the picture on the right, the establishment of this pedestrian area in green uh, has a strong repercussion on vehicular traffic condition. For example, in the actual scenario, uh, to reach a point B from a point A, users will follow a direct route. But after the establishment of this pedestrian area, users may follow different alternative routes with some in an indirect way. So, this method is essential to identify the current traffic rules and also to understand and to identify the inhibited maneuvers and the corresponding alternative routes. For each alternative route, it is essential to evaluate the travel time using a navigation program and then create a method, create a way to assign this inhibited flow. So start an iterative loop in order to converge into a solution. The first step is to update then the road section travel time with calibrated cost function for each alternative route, and then evaluate also the delay that users will spend at intersection with appropriate function. Then it is possible to update this total travel time and so understand how this flow will be redistributed. It is essential so to compare the flow of the current step of iteration with the flow of the previous step of the iteration. If the difference is very low, the procedure ends. But if there is not a good correspondence between this flow, it is essential to restart this iterative process. Regarding the traffic assignment, the first method that we use is based on travel time, and the flow of the inhibited maneuver will be calculated bearing in mind an inversion proportionality with travel time. For example, alternative routes with a lower travel time will be characterized by an higher, an higher flow. Other methods that we have used are the user equilibrium and the system optimization traffic assignment. These two problems consist in the minimization of the problem that we can see in the second column of this table. As fourth method, the all nothing assign method was used, that consists in assign the total flow to the inhibited maneuver that present the lowest travel time. As last method, um, the user equilibrium collapse, then the system optimization method is evaluated. This method consists in not considering the travel time of the inhibited maneuver on a specific alternative route in the free flow condition, uh, because we are in an urban context, and this quantity is very low. It is essential also to compare the result of this method with another with a demand model that is more precise and more reliable. So it is essential as a first step to evaluate demand flow. And for that, a four sub-model was used, consisting by four sub-model: the generation model, the distribution model, the model choice model, and the route choice model. Then for the supply model, the study area of Cassino is delimited. Then zoning was carried out, and finally, then the basic network was extracted, and finally, the component of demand was defined. As we can see in this figure, we have also several traffic counts available on the city of Cassino, and these are used to calibrate the model and to calibrate the OD metrics. As we can see in this tree graph above in this slide, we can see that in the pre-calibration phase there is not a good correspondence between the flow of the demand model and the flow of the traffic count. But after the calibration phase, the correspondence is better. Finally, as we can see in this slide, a comparison of flow of the with this simplified method and the flow of the demand model was carried out. The best model, as we can see, is the assignment method based on travel time. That is also the the easiest model to implement. At a lower step, we can find the user equilibrium assignment and the system optimization and assignment, and then the user equilibrium assignment collapsed in the system optimum assignment. At the bottom of the podium, there is the all or nothing assignment, and because this method is based on some unrealistic hypothesis. In conclusion, the pedestrian areas are the most radical interpretation to apply sustainable mobility, but they have some strong repercussion on vehicular traffic condition. The best way to approach this problem is to create an high performance travel demand models, but this require time and cost to implement this. So it is essential to provide all users with a simplified method that could be used in, for example, in decision-making context of design and also management. This procedure has a lot of advantages, but also limitation. The first is that this procedure lead to an overestimation of the vehicle flow, but that could be an advantage, for example, in the project context. Another limitation is that it is essential to choose an adequate amount of alternative routes for each inhibited maneuvers. As future development, um time will be spent to study the interactions with pedestrian flow um, in order to also uh, make some uh,
Maybe more realistic
more realistic, more realistic.
picture of the
Yeah,
traffic
yeah,
going on.
yes.
Okay.
And then there will be also an extension of this analysis to other important time windows. And as last step, it is essential also to validate this type of analysis to another case study. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Do we have any question? Can I just ask you, did you make those estimations on the basis of the present traffic, or you increased the traffic for the future? You have lots of traffic counters, so you have lots of data about present traffic.
Yes.
And you were doing with these traffic volumes, yes.
See, yes, use this traffic count to calibrate the model
Okay.
that are the actual traffic count. The idea behind this is that the demand travel will not change in this future traffic scenario.
Maybe decrease also. Hope.
Maybe.
Okay. Do I have the sign that somebody wants to ask something? No. Okay. Is there any other question for Mr. Capelli? So if not, thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
We have now with us our colleague Ankit Patel. Am I sure? Can you please share your presentation? He will present the paper that he wrote together with Giovanni Tesoriere and Tiziana Campisi with the title Uses Socioeconomic Factors to Choose Electromobility for Future Smart Cities. Do we have Ankit Patel with us? I see it on the screen, but I can't hear anything.
keeping me consistent here. Ankit, are you?
Can our technical support help me? Do you hear
Yes.
maybe Ankit Patel? Can you
Yes.
show his screen or something?
Ankit, are you there? Ankit, your microphone is off. You can I grant you whatever you want. Yes. Ankit,
He wrote to me in a private message that he cannot hear us. I'm not sure if he can hear us. I think we will wait for Ankit for some time. I know that the author of the presentation of of the paper with the title Ontology Quality Evaluation Methodology is with us, so maybe we can another time change the order. Okay, it's Shama Wilson. Can you maybe present your paper while we wait for our colleague Patel?
Yes, of course.
Oh, thank you very much. So please present your co-authors. So because I'm not sure that I will read the names correctly.
Okay, it's fine.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Can you share my? Can you see my
Yes,
screen?
we see it.
Okay. Shall I present it?
Yes, you can start.
Okay. Hello everyone. I'm Shama Wilson, and my the co-authors of this papers are Jeevani Gunathilaka, Atula Ginige, and Valisa Dira Indika. We are from Sri Lanka, University of Colombo School of Computing. My research entitled Ontology Quality Evaluation Methodology. Actually, this research is associated with ontology engineering, specifically ontology quality. If I define what is ontology, ontologies are human intelligible and machine interpretable knowledge representation of some aspects of domain. In a simple way, we can say it is a domain model. So in ontology engineering considers the development process such as planning, designing, building, and maintenance. Not only that, ontology field considered the methodologies, methods, tools, and languages to produce a well engineered ontology. When it comes to quality, we know quality is fit for the purpose. So, similarly, ontology quality has been defined as fitness for the purpose. In other term, I can say ontology evaluation is checking whether ontology meets the defined requirement in a context. So why quality is important? Say for example, when considering the ontologies nowadays, it is increasingly incorporated in information system. So it act as a core component. So if ontology is failed in quality, so it will adversely affect the overall information system. So it is essential to provide concentration onto the ontology quality. However, we observe that the attention to be provided for quality evaluation on ontologies got limited because of multiple reasons. Say, for example, the existing well known ontology methodologies have identified ontology evaluation as a phrase of a methodology rather than considering it as an ongoing task which begins in the early stages of the development process. Not only that, those methodologies have not provided a detailed description of the quality evaluation. In further exploration, we identified researchers have discussed number of areas related with ontology quality. However, we identified that there is no a proper methodology that describe a set of steps to be carried out in ontology evaluation, As a result, it has been identified that a number of badly engineered ontologies are out there. So, when considering the several areas, so we identified the areas can be classified into seven aspects such as level, characteristic, scopes, technique, stages, tools, and methodologies. When considering the levels, for example, so the researchers say that so the evaluation should be considered as a level wise, such as syntactic, semantic, lexicon, or context. And also some other researchers have defined set of characteristics to be evaluated, such as consistency, coverage, correctness, and modularity and comprehensibility. So, when considering the scopes, similar to the software engineering, we know the two types of testing: white box testing and black box testing. But in the ontology engineering also, researchers have introduced the ontology also should be evaluated from these two aspects, but they named as intrinsic evaluation as well as extrinsic evaluation, which can be further subdivided into subparts like structural intrinsic, domain extrinsic, and application extrinsic. I'm not getting time to explain each and every concept because of the time constraint. So similarly, several researchers have defined several techniques that we need to follow in the evaluation, and the tools and some methodologies. But we again identify that there is no proper methodology that guide the researchers from beginning to end how to specify the quality requirement, and what are the related theories for each stages, and how the characteristic can be evaluated. So in this study, we attempt to fill that gaps by introducing an iterative methodology for ontology quality evaluation, specifically analyzing the quality theories in software engineering, say for example the standard series. And not only that, we made an attempt to associate the existing theories with the proposed methodology. As illustrated in this slide, you can see the proposed methodology, which consists of four stages: quality requirement specification, plan and design, execution, and user acceptance. And also, we associated these stages with the ontology development life cycle, which is in the second figure in the right side. You can see it. And if I quickly explain each steps in the coming slides. So the very first stage is identification of quality requirement or quality requirement specification. Actually, we need to know, in order to evaluate an ontology, first of all we need to know what are the quality requirements that we need to consider. So we have to identify those requirements. So there are a number of approach already defined in software engineering, as well as there are few approaches defined in ontology quality. Hello.
I think you can continue. It's just that somebody joined us.
Okay, so thank
Okay.
you very much. Then when it comes to the quality requirement specification, there are before specification of a quality requirement, we need to identify several factors, such as who are the intended users, and what are the purposes, and what is the...
Sorry, now we are not seeing your presentation. Maybe.
Okay, I will share it again.
Thank
Is
you.
it
Now we see
okay?
it again.
Okay, so then there are several factors that we need to identify before quality requirement specification. Those are intended user requirements and purposes, and what are the contexts and the scope, and the important things are the characteristics and measures, and also resources. When considering the characteristic and measures, identifying the quality characteristic to be assessed is not straightforward. but there are some approaches we can adopt these approaches, such as Romeo methodology, Wilson ETL methodology. Those approaches or methodologies describe how to derive characteristic from the user needs in a considered context. So after specifying these quality characteristics and with respect to the quality requirements, we can move to the next stage, plan and design. Then the developers or evaluators then can plan their quality evaluation. Say, for example, they can identify the related ontology levels to be assessed and the related levels in which the characteristic measures are associated. And also similar to the software engineering, so the evaluators can design the test cases with the requirement, and we can also say with respect to the characteristic, and also can define the decision criteria in order to determine the quality. And also researchers can identify the tools to be utilized and the techniques to be applied in order to assess the measures derived for the characteristic. After planning and designing, the evaluators can perform the quality evaluation at the respective stage. Say, for example, during the development, researcher can perform intrinsic evaluation, domain intrinsic evaluation, and structural intrinsic evaluation using the corresponding characteristic, which is very much similar to the white box testing in software engineering. And also during the execution phase, perform the can perform the black box testing without prior to the structure of the ontology. So from the ontological point of view, we can say can perform domain intrinsic evaluation and application intrinsic evaluation using the corresponding measures identified in the previous stages. Finally, the finally use acceptance test, which can be performed by giving the complete system ontology integrated system to the real users in order to get their feedback and to understand about the quality of the ontology. So this is the approach I described in brief. And not only that, we demonstrate the applicability of this methodology in a real use case, considering the use case in an agriculture in the agriculture domain. So actually considering the ontology driven information system developed for the pest and disease management. So here I summarized the details that we have gathered through requirement specification phrase. Initially, we identify the mentioned factors as I had described in the previous slides, and here I summarized the things. And when considering the one requirement, so we have identified one of the requirement as the user seeking the necessary and sufficient contextual information through our ontology driven information system. When after applying the approaches defined in ontology engineering, say for example Wilson ETL approach, we identified that this requirement mentioned in the relevancy and completeness characteristic. In further applying the approach, we understood that the internally ontology should be concise and compliance with the rules and standard, and also the ontology should ontology knowledge should be covered properly. So such in a way that we identify the characteristic for all of the other requirements, and uh, as well as the internal ontology characteristics. And during the plan and design stage, we planned how we can perform our quality evaluation. So based upon our identified characteristic, here we listed all the identified characteristic, and we identify the measures that we can apply to assess these characteristics during the plan and design phrase. And also in the meantime, we understand what are the suitable technique that we can apply and the tools that we can utilize. Say for example, when considering the conciseness and the coverage, the measures are precision and recall. We understood that in our considered context, there are a number of valid documents provided by the experts. So then we can apply data-driven technique in assessing those characteristics. Then we decided to use the data-driven technique for that evaluation for conciseness and coverage. Accordingly, we select the tools as well. Similarly, we during the plan and design phase, we determine what are the technique that we can use, what are the tools, and what are based upon the available resources and the characteristic. Then the third stage is the execution. So as planned in the previous stage, we perform the quality evaluation. So in the intrinsic evaluation, we use OOPS tools, Protege, and reasoners to evaluate the structural characteristic, and the data-driven technique were applied to assess the characteristic related with domain intrinsic level. And from the black box testing, so we uh, queried the knowledge using the by supporting the Protege tool by running the Sparkle queries. Then we analyze the produce answers with the support of experts. That's how we perform the extrinsic level evaluation based upon the methodology. So finally, we apply we gave our system to the real users in order to get their feedback. Actually, we have done partially this user acceptance test because some parts in the other extent have not yet been developed. In order to get an idea about ontology quality, we gave our product partially developed product to the users. Then we get the user feedbacks according to the our approach. That is the overall approach and its application about our proposed methodology. If I summarize my presentation, so we identify several gaps in ontology quality, and we identify several issues as faced by developers because of the non-existence of proper methodology. So we proposed an iterative methodology for ontology quality evaluation by analyzing the quality theories in software engineering. And also we demonstrate the applicability of our methodology using a real use case in agriculture. Not only that, we introduced our methodology for the undergraduate who are currently doing research in ontology engineering, and we got several positive feedback from them as well. And in future, we expected to enhance this approach with a complete set of guidelines. So we expected to apply this methodology for many use cases. Uh, Thank you. This is the end of my presentation, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the presentation and skipping in the order. Do we have somebody who likes to ask something to our colleague Shama Wilson? If not, thank you again. Now we will try with the colleague Ankit Patel. Can you hear us? If not, here we have the co-author of the paper, so we'll manage to hear the presentation. The Professor Tiziana Campisi will present if it's necessary. Tiziana, I think we cannot count on Ankit.
Okay.
He's not
I
hearing us.
can
Okay.
share my screen.
Okay. The title of the presentation of the paper is Uses Socioeconomic Factors to Choose Electromobility for Future Smart Cities. The authors are Ankit Patel, Giovanni Tesoriere, and Tiziana Campisi, the Professor Tiziana Campisi from the University Enna Core in Italy, and she will present it. Thank you.
Thank you to Alexandra. Our research was defined considering these steps. Short and brief introduction about the hassle-free transport solution. We defined the Sustainable Development Goal in accordance to Agenda 2030 and consider also the user adoption and electric vehicle sector challenges. We define the social factor affecting to choose electromobility, the economic factor, and also define the conclusion and future scope. The hassle-free transport solution consider the use of a smart mobility solution, and electric vehicles are nowadays popular and public due to main reasons. In fact, it is possible to can book the ride on mobile app. We can pay via digital option and with their vehicle details live, and we can track their vehicle live during boarding, and there is a comprehensive set of safety features. Then sustainable development goals created by Agenda 2030 linked to this concept consider the accessibility, the inclusiveness, the sustainability, and multimodal transport. In terms of user adoption, we define an increased sale group despite of economic crisis. We understand and define a flexible financial incentive by the local governments, and the sale of electric vehicles increased from 43% to more 100 despite COVID-19 pandemic. Then, in terms of electric vehicle sector challenges, the electricity production and its distribution gap define different spread in all over the world. In the same way, the charging infrastructure and battery technology, we define in our research different government subside on electric vehicles and the user awareness and rate of acceptance. In terms of gender-based perception, we analyze that men and women have different perception on charging location, vehicle use, and vehicle range for battery charges. There is an importance of gender may on impact sales. In terms of customer preferences, we analyze that customer looking for personalized preference over time, and these preferences include vehicle body type, vehicle charging, paper gateway for charging, breadth of vehicle, and etc. In terms of social factor, we can define openness to experience. In fact, car sharing provides a new experience to customers for their daily mobility, and the experience of electric vehicle before and after use it changed. In terms of education, we consider the electric vehicle as a new technology that our considerable time will take for understanding its benefits, and more educated customers as preferred hybrid and electric vehicle, such as states like Norway, Sweden, and Netherlands. In terms of social factor also, it is necessary to underline the type of occupation in terms of job. For example, in Thailand or in South Korea, people with a higher income try to adopt electric vehicle, while in India it's a reverse trend. These show social geographical impact on choice on electromobility. Instead, there is an interest of innovative technologies, considering the electric vehicle attracts users for purchase, fast charging payment methods, and connected car. And user interest in technologies and various features are more willing to buy electric vehicle than other users. In terms also to social factor, we can discuss about trend and willingness to pay. In terms of trend, user adoption are based on current market requirements, and the impact of daily life and market trends largely biggest affect the selling of electric vehicle units. In terms of willingness to pay to buy, the user psychology and policy concern are main factors, such as the user-centric features and also the feelings, the vehicle functionality, the identity of the car, the ownership. We defined in Indonesia this type of feel, and also in India the new concept of new technology, and the South Korea the environmental concern. In terms also of social factor, it is good to consider the living location and the environmental concern. In terms of living location, we need to purchasing power and preference level in urban and rural usage, and we need to consider the availability of charging location, the policies, the income level, the willingness to pay more for charging. In terms of environmental concern are a game changer in the adoption of electric vehicle. Indian and Australian users are pro-environmental when choosing electric vehicle, and in the USA, users have more deeper concern about environments to the federal policies and legal matters. In terms of economic factor, it is necessary to focus on income and the price for charging. In terms of income, in fact, in France and Germany, for example, so the higher income people tend to purchase electric vehicle, while in Ireland and India, regardless of income level, users are interested in electric vehicle. In terms of price for charging, there are four main elements affecting price for charging, such as owner of the vehicle, charging points, perspective of electric vehicle buyers, and the distribution companies. It is also necessary to consider in terms of economic factors also the maintenance costs, the highest maintenance cost of batteries, and the cost analysis will increase the rate of adoption for the user side and instead the market penetration. In fact, like is described on this figure on this slide, customer adoption rate and the purchasing behavior define penetration. Netherlands has higher electric vehicle penetration than Germany, and this show user willingness to buy electric vehicle for the future generation. In terms also of economic factor, it is necessary to introduce the charging infrastructures in terms of easy to use, the easy access, but also in terms of future policies and power network services, mobile charging, and the ease of access will improve electric vehicle adoption rates. In terms of incentives, they are able to reduce the gap between conventional and electric vehicle by giving loan the low interest areas, and these incentives are necessary due to the new technologies, and consumer can be hesitate to buy if no incentive given. Also, in terms of economic factor, it is necessary to introduce the lifespan than business model. The lifespan is better for both users in order to increase the use access of electromobility. Current driving distance range from 100,000 to 300,000 kilometers, which will be increased up to 150,000 to 350,000 kilometers in the future. And also the battery boasts up by ultracapacitor, thermally modulated lithium iron phosphate battery. In terms of business model, The interest is very deeply in the new mobility solution and investment in green technologies. Also, in terms of economical factors, it is necessary to establish the focus on taxes and parking facilities, such as the taxes based on location or the parking facilities in terms of provide policy-driven incentive for parking or consumer preference driving parking. Like conclusion, we can define that user is a pivotal role in the electromobility spread. By understanding social economical factor, we can predict the nature of user of electric vehicle buying capacity. And like future scope, we can we can fix that a user study is need in order to define the social economical factors, and a deep analysis is necessary in order to understand the user choice in terms of both whether they are potential buyer of vehicle or potential manager of transport service with electric vehicles, and also to create reply to this demand. What about the response of a user in the realm of a scooter, other micromobility service, and electric public transport services? I completed my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiziana. Do we have any question? I think presently it's very important topic, the electric vehicles and the future of electric vehicles in many senses. Is there any question overall of all three papers that we hear up to now? Because the fourth paper, which was written by Ines Charadi, Tiziana Campisi, Giovanni Tesoriere, and Khaled Ben Abdallah, and the title is A Holistic Approach to Some Strategies and Actions in the Post-Pandemic and Energy Crisis Era, will not be presented. You will have the chance to write it after the conference, the workshop. Okay, thank you all for your presence, especially the presenters who present our paper. We have 5 minutes of the time, so if somebody has the need to comment on something, if not, thank you again and see you somewhere else. Have a nice day.
Okay, thank you very
Bye.
much. Stay bye.
Right.